when I was younger, I broke my left wrist. So I have 2 screws in my left wrist right now. He even brings it up to me. Actually came up with the idea. He's like, hey, man, you're an athletic kid. Immediately, I said, all right, well, I want to be a ref. For some reason, I was always a Mike Chioda guy. I love singles matches. I love being the quote-unquote narrator of their stories.
When you were at XWA training, who are some of the guys like you kind of like rose, so you say, with?
John Steele, Joey Bones, Mike Gamble, Dexter Lou, Delta, Waves and Curls, BRG. At one of the Extreme Rumbles I had in that building, I had Sandman pour his beer all over me.
You finally got to have like an appearance, like wrestling technically.
Yeah, I got thrown into the Rumble, and then thrown right out of the Rumble.
Winning the ref of the year, so that must have felt good.
It was nice to be recognized for, you know, the years of hard work that I've had. I have been with Wrestling Open since episode 5. There's one person that works there that I've never gotten to ref for. I really want to ref for.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Best for Business. Now, I'm absolutely pumped for this one. Referee Tyler Callaway, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
I know, it's crazy. I was looking back, like, you might be one of these guys that I've known legit since I was in, like, 7th grade. Now, I was going to start off asking you about how you got into it and all that. However, last night I was asked to ask you a certain question, have your perspective on a certain story. I don't know. I think this is before you started reffing. Tell me about what happened with Wildman Kongo.
All right. So, yes, actually, that was before I started reffing. That's actually, generally speaking, that's how I actually got into the business.
Oh.
There was, believe it was a angle. I forget who he was wrestling. Maybe Anthony Katina. The fans at XWA, we all thought that Anthony Katina was trash. There was a whole thing with bringing toilet paper and throwing toilet paper at him. I believe he might have actually had the match before Kongo. I didn't necessarily like Kongo as a fan.
Okay.
So I threw toilet paper at Kongo. He told me not to, or said something, and I did it again anyways. And he did the whole heel jump, and I didn't. So I tried to go back after him. Everything got separated. I was fully expecting to get kicked out. And next thing I know, the promoter's asking me if I've ever thought about wrestling school.
So that's how it started? So walk me through that.
that was literally like the end of that night. I fully expected to be told, like, hey, you know, this was at XWA. It was at one of the Thursday night throwdowns. I fully expected, hey, you're not allowed back here. Like, that's not allowed. You can't be jumping the guardrail.
Yeah.
Nope. My first contact was, I believe it might have been John Roy. John Roy came over and asked what had happened. I explained my side of the story, told him that, you know, I probably shouldn't have done it, but hey, you know, shit happens. Next thing I know, at the end of the show, I'm talking to Mike Antonucci, who ran XWA, and he's then asking me, he's like, hey, you know, have you ever thought about being a wrestler? So he must have just said, hey, mate, this kid's got some sort of fire in him. Yeah. And then 3 months after that, I started training at the Kingdom.
Wow.
That would be end of 2016.
Wow. So what made you pick XWA just to go to? How did you find out about them?
So I actually came about XWA on Facebook. Wow. Never really had been to independent wrestling at all. It was always just watched, you know, SmackDown and Raw, and there was no NXT at that time for me, at least. But growing up, it was just SmackDown and Raw, and, you know, Saturdays you would watch your Velocity, and Sundays you would get your Sunday Heat before a pay-per-view, and that was wrestling for me. So then a couple of my buddies scrolled across it on Facebook, found out about it. We all took a trip down there, and we all got hooked on it.
Wow.
started going week after week. I mean, it's kind of easy to do when it's only $5, so that
Yeah.
was a plus side as well. So started going week after week. We became quote unquote diehard fans, and the snowball just started tumbling from there.
Wow. So you say 3 months later you start training to be a wrestler. So did you like ever wrestle, or did you transition to refereeing quick after that?
So starting out, I went in and I wanted to wrestle. Obviously, everybody wants to wrestle.
Yeah.
Trainers at the Kingdom were Matt Taven, Vinny Marcellia, TK O'Ryan, Mike Bennett.
Mhm.
Matt Taven actually came up with the idea. He's like, "Hey man, you're an athletic kid, but when I was younger, I broke my left wrist, so I
Okay.
have 2 screws in my left wrist right now.
Mhm.
Knowing wrestling, everything runs through the left side of your body. So
Yeah.
Taven brings it up to me and he says, "Hey man, it's going to be tough because not a lot of people up here know how to work Mexican style, which
Mhm.
is the opposite. So
Yeah.
working through your
Right.
right hand." He's like, you can constantly kill yourself to make yourself look better for other people, or you could try to find a new career, commentary, management, referee, whatever the case. And immediately I said, all right, well, I want to be a ref.
Nice.
My thing, everybody always likes Little Nate, and for some reason, I was always a Mike Chioda guy. So
Oh yeah.
as soon like I always watched Mike Chioda, and I always, I don't want to say studied him, but I guess nonchalantly studied him
Mhm.
because I didn't know, like going into training, I didn't know anything about wrestling refereeing, but I knew enough about wrestling refereeing through Mike Chioda
Yeah.
that I knew the general shtick of it and was able to get taught everything else that I needed to, and can continue to, even to this day, still learn things.
Did you ever work a show with Mike Chioda yet, or no?
I did not.
Okay.
We were originally supposed to work together.
Okay.
This might have been maybe 2020 ish,
Mhm.
sometime right around COVID time. And unfortunately, he couldn't make the show. But
Okay.
yeah, that was the closest I got to it.
Nice. So you start training and then you transition to doing refereeing. When did you ref that first match? Do you remember that first match you refed?
So the first match that I refed actually was for a company called Constitution State Wrestling.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I was still in training. The company was renting the ring for Mike, and Mike said, "Hey, I have a kid that's in training as a ref." So they ended up um, letting me ref. And
Mhm.
fun fact, my first ever match was with Fire Ant.
Wow. So look into like your most. What was the most recent match you ref? Was it a wrestling open? I assume.
Yeah, it would have been last week at Wrestling Open.
So what is like the biggest difference from that first match you ref to the most recent and you that you've seen?
Oh, um, definitely experience, timing,
Mhm.
um, knowing where and where not to be, where
Okay.
to and where not to be.
Yeah.
When I was first coming into it, it was a lot of doing everything I saw on TV,
Mhm.
trying to mimic what was on the television at the time. And grew up real fast in the wrestling business. That's not how it is. Everybody's got their own
Yeah.
style. You got to develop your own thing, For a very quick while, I was one of the only people that were doing the big swipe for the big falsie. And
Oh.
a lot of people have taken that at upper levels, and that's cool because
Mhm.
nobody was really doing it. I kind of just, what can I do to make myself stand out there? And that was my
Yeah.
thing. I've always been able to, like, acting's always been good for me. I've always been able to tell a story with my face. So to be able to get like my own sort of move or something that I was attributed for, that was my thing. That and taking bumps.
Nice. So you said growing up athletically. I know you played softball. What else did you play?
So I played basketball and baseball all
Okay.
throughout high school. Played baseball in college, and then tore my rotator cuff. So that's why I'm now doing, the beer league softball and what have you. But yeah, I played basketball and baseball growing up.
What positions?
Basketball, I was the same height that I am now when I was in school. So at basketball, they had me as a power forward and a center.
Mhm.
And in baseball, I was a pitcher and a shortstop.
Wow. So then when we go to ref, and I've seen you do a lot of matches. Do you have a favorite style of match, whether it's like singles, tag, the multi-man matches? There's something that sticks out to you?
I don't like multi-man matches.
Yeah. Okay.
The fans love them.
Yeah.
I don't. There's a lot of me that has to just stand in a corner and just watch a lot of
Hmm.
BS happen.
Yeah.
Preferably, I love singles matches. I love being that third person in the ring to help translate the story that the two guys are trying to, or two girls are trying to tell.
Yeah.
Being the quote unquote narrator of their story, so to speak.
Hmm. And then when we think about everything you learned at XWA, what were some like the biggest things you learned from them?
So there's a lot that I learned at
Yeah.
XWA, both positive and negative. And you learn positives and negatives everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Mike Antonucci, he definitely helped set me on the right path. He gave me a lot of opportunities, gave me that first opportunity,
Hmm.
gave me the first platform to work on a weekly show. Um, I feel grateful because I was able to gain a lot of experience and a lot of reps, so to speak, or ring time in a
Hmm.
short amount of time. So a lot of new guys, when they come up, especially refs, they may work a show or two a month. On a good month, maybe they get 3 shows in.
Yeah.
Uh, I was working at least 4 shows a month and then picking up some others. So
Wow. Yeah.
I was getting to, and then some of those shows that I was working every week, I was the only ref. So now I'm working 9 matches, 8 matches a night. I got to 150 matches in my first year,
Wow.
my first full calendar year, because I
Yeah.
was doing so many different, Ironman shows or having 5 matches on a show. And so I got a lot of experience under my belt very quick. And, unfortunately, Mike moved on. He moved
Mhm.
down to the South. But I've kept in contact with him, and I've kept in contact with Jose
Nice.
Perez. I still see him lurking around at all the local shows,
Yeah.
giving his advice, giving his input. He's a very valuable mind in the
Mhm.
wrestling industry, especially in New England, a New England Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Um, he's been instrumental in giving me little tidbits and pointers,
Yeah.
seeing things from a wrestler's point of view. I never really got that. I got everything from a promoter's point of view. And because I kind of graduated through training so fast because I was
Mhm.
going to be a ref, so I didn't necessarily need to do all of the training. Now I continued training on after I became show ready as a ref, but I kind of had like an abbreviated training, so to speak. So I never really
Yeah.
got all that one-on-one time when it came to Taven or Vinny or any of those guys. So I really only got the promoter aspect. So then being able to link up with somebody like Jose and getting that wrestler aspect side and seeing, okay, a wrestler likes this from the refs and a wrestler needs this from a ref, needs to know what is happening here. And promoter's never going to know that. Promoter
Yeah.
just has his opinion and gives you a check or an envelope at the end of the night and thanks, see you again next month.
Yeah. So what was your first interaction with Jose Perez? Do you remember that?
Well, the first interaction with Jose truthfully would have been the Congo situation because I know that he was involved with that at the same point.
Yeah.
I probably talked to him in between John Roy and Mike.
Mhm.
Um, but again, it was more questioning and trying to figure out what had happened more than, hey, you're not allowed to come back here, or hey, don't ever. I mean, I'm sure I got told don't ever do that again, but it was more along the lines of the inquisitive, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah. And then when you were at XWA training, who are some of the guys like you kind of like rose, so you say, with?
Uh, Training for me over at XWA, it was John Steele,
Nice.
who's still kicking around, Joey Bones, who actually just came back. And then uh we had Mike Gamble, the American Sumo. He was there at
Mhm.
the time while I was training. Dexter Lou,
Oh
Nick
yeah.
Delta, um, you know, a great group of guys.
Were you there for like waves and curls, or was that after?
Nope, I was there. Waves and curls, we were all there together. I'm still, kicking it with waves and curls on some Thursdays here and there. So it's kind of
Nice.
cool to still be able to link up with them. BRG, Brett,
Yeah.
we were in training together there. So it's cool seeing people get further on the horizon, waves and curls with AEW, BRG with MLW. It's great to see all these guys that I came up with actually getting to dabble their feet on actual television.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to ask you, Joey Bones talked about it, but one of the things I remember XWA was promoting heavy was when they had a seminar with Jeff Jarrett. So, like, what were some of the things you learned from that seminar?
Um, to be truthful, I learned a lot of my wrestling background out of that seminar. I
Wow.
soaked in a
Yeah.
lot of knowledge. Um, it was more just me. I sat at the commentary desk at XWA that entire day.
Mm.
Um, there was a lot of stories. There was a lot of Q&A that I was able to just soak in. Um, I didn't get in the ring. I knew that I wasn't wrestling. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to give that time to the people that were there for the physical wrestling portion. But I wanted to soak in as much information as possible. So for me, that was purely an informational thing. And I think that's another thing that helped me grow leaps and bounds very early on in my career.
Yeah. So you mentioned it. You've been a part of XWA for a while, but I believe what was it? Right after COVID, they do a few shows and they end.
Yep.
So you were part of, I assume, the final ever XWA show, and I assume the final ever Throwdown. So what was that like being a part of that, especially the Throwdown, the XWA Event Center? That place was iconic. So what was going through your head during that time?
Uh, it was pretty sentimental,
Yeah.
honestly. There was a lot of memories in that building. Um, a lot of, you know, I was able to, at one of the Extreme Rumbles I had in that building, I had Sandman pour his beer all over me.
Wow.
He came out to the ring and he like stepped up on the guardrail and one foot on the stair, one foot on the guardrail, went to go chug it, and then just poured it all over me, and the fans went nuts. So I have a lot of stories that stick
Mhm.
out about that. So it was a very everybody knew it was coming to an end,
Yeah.
but nobody really wanted to believe it. Now, obviously, years later, it's fact is fact. But
Yeah.
I think it was one of those things like everybody knew, but we just wanted to go out on a high, wanted to go out as good at the best we possibly could.
Do you know what they're using that building for now? Have you been by since?
Not a clue.
I'm curious if the giant XWA logo is still on there.
Not a clue.
Wow. So was it the show after that, or was it the year before? Didn't you enter a rumble for them or something?
Yeah. I don't I don't necessarily remember what year that actually was, but yes, yeah, I got thrown into the Rumble, and then thrown right out of the Rumble. So
But
that was pretty
after
cool
all
too.
these years training at XWA, you finally got to have an appearance, wrestling technically.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than the birthday parties.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
All the birthday, those were fun. Those were fun as hell, man. All the birthday party shows. It was really just all of us students got together and kind of just had fun for the kids. The
Mhm.
kids don't care about the story. The kids don't care about the I mean, the kids know the boo the bad guy, cheer the good guy, but they
Yeah.
don't care about the whole story in between it. That's all they care about. So it's fun. Those were real fun times. Is the
So
birthday
did
parties.
Tyler Callaway wrestle a match at a birthday party?
Tyler Callaway has probably wrestled about 5 matches at
Oh, what
birthday
was the
parties.
move set like? Did you ever finish or anything?
Tyler Callaway's finish was just a straight up power bomb, and he was not very soft with it either.
Yeah. So later on, I don't know when you start refing for RWA, and even was it last year, 2023, winning the ref of the year. So that must have felt good.
Yeah, that was a very it was nice to be recognized for the years of hard work that I've had, even though the years weren't necessarily with RWA.
Mm,
I look at T Phoenix as he's a great man,
yeah.
has a very smart mind for the business, knows how to put on a friendly, like family friendly show that does not ever cross any boundaries. And that's the perfect, like, that's the mindset that wrestling needs to be in going forward, because there's so much tossing and turning, whether it's going to be like, oh, back to the attitude era, or no,
Mm,
we've got to stay PG. Like, he knows right where to stay on the line, and it's perfect every single time. I mean, his draws are growing more and more with every show that he
yeah.
runs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I love him. I have a very tough schedule with my shoot job now, so
Mm,
a lot of our schedules don't mix and match anymore. But when they do, I always try to get into RWA, because it's like it's like a second home to me.
Yeah. And then one of the match shows he talked about was probably the favorite one he's ever run, RWA Goes Broadway. You got to the main event for that one, right?
Yeah.
Him
Yep.
and Shay Cash. Do you remember that match at all?
I remember bits and pieces of it. Yep.
Nice, nice.
That was a very fun night that I did not expect to. First of all, I didn't expect to do that main event going into that show, and um, it was a different taste of, for lack of a better term, heavy hitters.
Yeah.
So it wasn't your typical big man brawl and rah rah rah. There
Mhm.
was a lot of, goo goo gaga in it, and there was a lot of story. So it all came together, and it was nice and refreshing to have a different sort of big man match rather than
Nice.
just the I'm big and you're big and who's the bigger man.
Yeah. And then another show you did back in March, I think, is Beyond Wrestling's, what is it, the biggest show they've ever ran, Shamrock Slam. So to be a part of that show, that would have been good. Actually, what was like your introduction? How'd you get into Beyond Wrestling?
So Beyond I got into because I was bored on Thursdays. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah.
Having XWA and running every single Thursday and then having it just stop and leave. I quickly found that Beyond was running uncharted territory at the time.
Hmm.
So that was kind of like a tag team sort of special gimmick that they had going on up there. Checked out a couple shows, talked to DC, found him, introduced myself, gave him kind of, my career synopsis
Yeah.
and was throwing my hat in the ring for if you ever needed a ref. And one day I got a call for an uncharted territory. I think I got a call at about 11:30 in the morning and asked to be there at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I said, sure, I'm
Nice.
leaving
Was
work
it the
now.
White Eagle?
That was, yep.
Wow.
That was, I guess that would have been what, 2021,
Wow.
2022
Mhm.
sometime. Um, that was an episode of Uncharted Territory. And then I have been with Wrestling Open since episode 5.
Wow.
I was not there for the first 4 episodes,
Uh-huh.
but I've been there ever since.
So,
I think
oh, I was gonna say to go with Wrestling Open, it was kind of like an XWA. So, what was it like having a show like Wrestling Open and XWA, which is weekly to build to the bigger shows, rather than having like the bigger shows happen just like once a month?
I think it can give you a better sense as a fan,
Mhm.
especially if you're a diehard fan or you continue to come back. Um, it allows you to play with stories a lot
Yeah.
more. It allows your wrestling product to be more like what you see on TV. You can carry out stories every week, um, which weeks turn to months, and lately, months have turned to years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, but in that sense, it allows us to, um, I don't want to say push the envelope, but it does allow you to kind of um, push forward onto what's going on in the wrestling world and
Yeah.
dial it into the quote unquote indie world.
Yeah. So you've been a part of Wrestling Open since episode 5 and seeing the progression of Wrestling Open. Who are like some of the guys there that you've just seen like the transformation of?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like our whole roster, if you want me to be
Yeah.
honest with you. Fancy Ryan Clancy, he's grown tremendously, tremendous strides in the amount of time that he's been there. Waves and curls, like you've already mentioned, they've grown just by being there. Um, you have your regulars there, like Steven Stetson, who might
Hmm.
be the most hated man in all of indie wrestling that I've seen.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different people, but Beyond, even now, Beyond has its own school, the Beyond Institute of Pro Wrestling or BioPro. Their students are now finally starting to break out of class and finally getting onto the shows. So you got Handyman, Jake Gray, you've got Drager, and you've got Brett Metro up there.
Mhm.
They're wrecking and running wild. So it's great to see the next generation start breaking their feet and getting wet in the business.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm curious, have you like refed any of the, I don't know what they're called, like the tryout matches? Because I know like people like Jermaine Marbury, all it took was a tryout match, and you've seen what he's done at Wrestling Open.
Yep. So occasionally I will throw a name out to um the promoters for the tryout matches.
Mhm.
They don't always take the suggestions, but
Yeah.
occasionally I try to throw out some suggestions. But yes, I do ref the tryout matches. The only time that I don't is if we have a ref that wants to try out, and then they would obviously
Ah,
ref the tryout
yeah.
match. But other than that, nope. I either myself or Scott or Bill, we're the refs.
Nice. So another company, I'm pretty sure you've been with since the start. Tell me about it because you've known him for a while. Fight Life.
Fight Life with my boy Frankie.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Fight Life's a great company. It's another unique spin. It's Frankie has been in the wrestling business for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pretty much all behind the scenes, production, video, whatever the case may be. He's had a ton of experience. Um, and it was cool to see him be able to break off and be able to start his own promotion and be able to get his own unique, fresh taste of wrestling from his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a blast. We had pretty much the whole first year of the company was Masha Slamovich reign.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fun and equally terrifying at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Did you ref that first ever Fight Life show?
I did.
Nice, nice, nice. So you've gotten to ref at a lot of different places for Beyond Wrestling, Fight Life, and name the company, even RWA. Do you have like one or two venues that like is your favorite, or like one of the venues that like is pretty sick to ref at?
That's tough. I mean, obviously, like we said, I always had that kind of heart close connection to the event center
Yeah.
for XWA. But I think even now, up at the White Eagle every week, that's a
Mhm.
very cool kind of venue because it's a very big open room and it's a very close knit community, so to speak. So, fans are right up on the ring and you're getting kind of more um, connected, so to
Yeah.
speak, with your fan base rather than having them be behind guardrails and having everything happening on the outside. Everything's kind of right near you and you're more connected in with the room, so to speak.
Oh,
Eagle's definitely great. And I think my favorite venue that I've refed in would probably be at the venue that I had refed for XWA. This would have probably been right coming out of COVID, and that would
mhm.
be Plymouth Memorial
Yeah.
Hall. That was a dope venue.
Yeah. Another one I was gonna ask you about towards the end of it, you got to ref for what, right?
I did. Yep,
So
I got
coming back all
the
those
last
years,
two.
so coming back all those years, it must have been cool again to ref at Fete for Beyond.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely a unique experience. The what shows were crazy, man. There
Mhm.
was so much talent in that locker
Oh
room.
yeah.
I there was so much, and I was too stupid to
Mhm.
realize it at the time. Like I look back on it now and I go, I should
Yeah.
have talked to all these guys, man. I
Yeah.
could have gotten all these stories. I could have learned so much stuff. But no, instead I was very, new to the business still and
Mhm.
didn't really want to interfere with anything. But yeah, going back to Fete, what this past week, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was a great time. I'm looking forward to the next show for sure. We're back there in
Nice.
October again.
So in your eyes, what is like the best part and the worst part of being a referee?
Um, to simply put it, the best part, like I said earlier, being that third person helping tell their story.
Nice.
Especially as somebody that had been on the other side of the guardrail and knowing how a bad ref can ruin a great match,
Mhm.
but a good ref can never make a bad match worse.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. Like a bad ref can ruin a good match, but a good ref can save a bad match. He can a good ref can actually hide mistakes or, you know, whatever happens bad in a match can be covered up by a good ref. So that's definitely the side that I love, but that's also a double-edged sword because everybody's got their opinions.
Mhm.
So when I say that that's my strongest suit, others would say that that's their weakest suit because they don't want the criticism. I've got very thick skin.
Yeah.
I don't bite to the criticism much. I take it with a grain of salt, and you know, there's not many people that, in my eyes, are necessarily qualified to be telling me how to ref when I've now been doing it for almost 10 years. And I've
Wow, that's
kind
awesome.
of traveled all through New England, and it's just, I've made connections with people on TV, and I don't, I'm happy where I'm at.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily that I don't want to move up. I mean, I was afforded a spot on the WWE high prospect list or whatever. Um, so that was pretty cool, but I'm happy where I'm at. I
Nice.
love what I do. I love the time frame and how I do it. I love not having to be somewhere for my whole life. Like I love wrestling, but I don't want it to be my life.
Mhm. Wait, what is this you just said? This like blow my mind. What did you do with the WWE highest prospects list?
Yeah, I got added to their little prospect list. Basically it's kind of a like a running list for their extras, I guess, so to speak.
Mhm.
People that they would deem qualified to be able to work for their company. I actually was, I'm not nowhere near scouted, but I've talked to Gabe Sapolsky a bunch
Yeah.
of times, who worked and still works with WWE. Um,
Nice.
you know, he kind of gave me that blunt truth. You're 6'2", brother. You're
Yeah.
never really going to be a ref.
Yeah.
So, the most I would ever really do for them, again, got the wrist problems. I'm never going to wrestle. So the most I would ever do is be an extra. I
Yeah.
don't really need to be an extra. I don't need to be on TV like that.
Yeah.
I thanked him up and down for the opportunity. Don't get me wrong. I would love it if afforded, but it's not something that I'm dying for. It's more, I'm doing what I love right now.
Nice. Do you like being tall, like when you ref, or
Do I like being tall when I ref? No,
yeah?
no, and none of the wrestlers like it either. What I've learned, unfortunately, is I've gotten very good at matching heights. So, um, it's probably a reason why my knees and my back hate me so much. But I do a lot of crouching and squatting.
Hmm.
When a submission's happening, uh, you know, I said earlier I was a pitcher and shortstop.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was a catcher in baseball.
Hmm.
So I bring that right into wrestling. So a submission's happening, I'm down on one knee with one leg spread all the way out, kind of like a catcher would be. Asking, do you want to give it up? Do you want to give it
Yeah.
up? Do you want me to ring the bell? But then I spring right back up from that position. Yeah, my knees are going to be shot. But I'm very good at matching the heights, but
Hmm.
when you first see me or you see me walk out as a 6'2", it kind of, in the eyes of a promoter or the minds of a promoter, kind of turns the heads and turns the stomachs a little bit, because it's just like, oh, you're going to make all my people look small.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we look at everything, you said you're close to 10 years being a part of the business. Whether it was a fan or a wrestler, what are like some of your most memorable moments being a part of wrestling so far?
Um, Ricochet and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah. Was that your first XWA or no?
No, that was one of the
Okay.
first big pay-per-views though, like
Yeah.
the big monthly shows.
Hmm.
Um, that was at Brown University. That was a fun time. Um, I think one of my favorite matches that I've refed happened at that Plymouth Memorial Auditorium. It was JT Dunn and Danny Limelight.
I had
That
that match.
was
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
that was a banger of a match,
Hmm.
honestly. Especially at the beginning when they started out doing all their their pose off and
Yeah.
the mind games. Danny goes and gets his chair and he sits and he starts taunting JT, and JT comes to get him and Danny slides in. At that point, I thought it was going to be kind of like these guys are going to mail it in.
Hmm.
These guys are going to give it a half rate performance, and
Yeah.
collect their paycheck and go home. Nah, these boys put in the work, my man.
Hmm.
That was honestly the first match I've ever had that I got blown up, that I was out of breath.
Wow. How long did
Uh,
they go?
I couldn't tell you that. Probably, if I had to guess, somewhere in the range of 20 minutes, 20,
Yeah.
23, somewhere in that range. Um, and it's not even necessarily the amount of time, because I've done 60-minute Ironman matches
Mhm.
and didn't even get blown up. So it's
Yeah.
more just that speaks to the quality and the drive that both of those gentlemen had. Danny and JT are two of bro, they ball out every
Yeah.
time that they're in the ring. Um, it was I was so thankful to have that match, to be able to share the ring with them, and it was just kind of eye opening experience. Like, hey, brother, you better hit the treadmill or something, because you can't keep up with these boys.
Yeah. So when we go and talk about that, are there some other matches that really stick out that you got to be a part of in ref?
Um, I mean, there's always going to be a bunch of matches that'll stick out. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a match in for XWA with King Leon and Joey Bones.
Yeah.
That was that match will always stick out in my head. I had, over here when I talked about it with even with my first match with
Mhm.
Fire Ant, that's one of those, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Um, that was cool to be able to say that that's my first experience, and to be able
Yeah.
to turn on the TV and be like, oh, that was my first in-ring experience. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so there's always going to be things like that. I don't necessarily think that I always remember like matches and
Mhm.
whatnot. I mean, I think another one of my favorite matches that I ever refed would have been at XWA at the event center, and that would have been Ray Phoenix against Riot.
Oh yeah.
That was another banger of a match, and then the following match was Trigger and Penta.
Hmm.
So it was like those two matches, and people paid $10 to see that. Like, it blows my mind that people were able to the quality of wrestling people were able to see for the steel week after week. It was just
Yeah, it was wild. So we talk about a lot of the people you got to ref for. You've got to do a lot of people for, whether it's XWA, Beyond, RWA. But is there anybody in particular you want to ref a match for?
I mean, I could be cliche. I could be that cliche guy and be like, oh, I want to ref for The Rock. Oh,
Yeah.
I
Oh
want to
yeah.
ref for this person. I want to ref for John Cena.
Yeah.
Um, if you want me to be completely honest with you,
Hmm.
there's one. I've done a couple shows off the rip, uh, offhand for Chaotic Wrestling.
Yeah.
Filling in for them if need be. There's one person that works there that I've never gotten to ref for.
Hmm.
I might have ref for him in a tag match, but
Okay.
I really want to ref for Chase Del Monte.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, I've never gotten the chance to physically work with him in the ring, and I really want to. That's one of the people, another New England stalwart. That's another guy that has been around New England for at least half of his life,
Yeah.
around the New England scene. So that's another guy that I really just want to. And then I really would love a Jose Perez singles match, man.
Oh yeah. Have you done
But
one when he came back or no?
I've done like his one-off things or like his tag matches,
Hmm.
but I've never gotten a serious Jose Perez East Coast intensity Jose
Yeah.
Perez match. Never gotten one of those. Never will get one. His wife will not allow one of those. So I completely understand it, but I'm jealous. I missed out on some good times. I know
Yeah.
that.
And then one of the last things I want to ask you, all these years you reffing, is there like one show that like you were really proud to be a part of?
I think that's every show, man.
Yeah.
Um, I can't pinpoint any one show that I'm proud to be a part of,
Hmm.
because you know every single show I feel like I add something to,
Yeah.
whether it be as an official or whether it be as a wrestling mind with somebody that's got years of experience now. Nobody ever really asks for the referee's point of view.
Hmm.
um, I'm not an outspoken person by any means, so I'm not afraid to give the referee's point of view, but a
Yeah.
lot of times it causes people to open their eyes and go, oh shit, that would be pretty dumb if we did it like that. Let's rework it and do it this way. So that way Callaway don't look dumb.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm grateful that people actually open their minds to the ref's viewpoint now, because for a while that was a no point. It was, we don't really care. You're there to count 1, 2, 3, maybe to 5 or 10, and see if somebody submits. Now it's a more integral part of the story. Now
Yeah.
I'm needed now.
Yeah. Well, Tyler Callaway, I want to thank you for doing this, but I end every interview the same. The day you decide to call it a day and officially retire, what do you want your legacy to be remembered for in pro wrestling?
Man, I just want my legacy in pro wrestling to be remembered for the greater good, not for making wrestling better.
Nice.
I don't want, we want to keep the negative out of wrestling at all times.
Yeah.
You know, I just want everybody to be safe. I want everybody to be healthy, and going forward, if you know, if I never put that shirt on again, I can go to sleep well every night knowing that each time that I did put that shirt on, everybody in my hands was safe. Everybody
Nice.
in my hands was happy and healthy. That's all I need.
Nice. Well, I want to thank you for everything, and especially over these years, there's so many memories I have with you. So, Tyler, I want to thank you for everything you've done for me so far. Thank you for this, and thank you for joining me for this episode.
Not a problem, buddy. Appreciate you having me again.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, and thank you everybody for watching this episode. I'm Coach C. This was Best for Business.